You know that feeling when you're staring down the barrel of uh, just a massive, overwhelming project?
Oh, yeah, like writing a book or building a startup or even just overhauling your daily routine.
Exactly. Usually feels like you've just dumped a 10,000-piece jigsaw puzzle straight onto the living room floor.
And you don't have the box.
Right. You don't have the box, you have no idea what the picture is supposed to be,
Yeah.
and you are just entirely surrounded by chaos.
It's completely paralyzing. I mean, you end up just sifting through this mountain of fragmented pieces, hoping something naturally connects, but mostly you just feel stuck before you even begin.
Yeah, and most of us, when we're faced with that sprawling puzzle, we operate purely on impulse. We randomly grab pieces that look colorful.
Hmm.
We wait for a fleeting burst of motivation, right? Hoping the big picture will just magically assemble itself through sheer willpower.
Which almost never happens.
Never happens. But today, we're doing a deep dive into a framework that completely dismantles that approach. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way.
Glad to be here.
And if you are someone who loves unpacking those big aha moments and learning how to engineer order out of absolute chaos, well, you are in the perfect place.
We have a truly fascinating source document today.
We really do. It's a strategy document titled ValRunescapePodcast.pdf. Now, if you are looking over my shoulder at this text, your first thought is probably going to be, what is this?
Yeah, it looks like a highly specific, overly intense gaming guide for a RuneScape account named Val.
Exactly.
Oh,
But I promise you, as we dug into the mechanics of this text, it became crystal clear that this isn't really about a video game at all.
not even a little bit. It is a masterclass in systems thinking, extreme behavioral discipline, and long-term goal execution.
Right. What we are about to explore is really a sophisticated psychological blueprint. It just happens to be disguised as a gaming manual.
The principles outlined for this character, Val, who is subtitled The Relentless Climber, are directly applicable to how we handle any complex long-term endeavor in the real world. We're looking at how to prioritize foundational infrastructure over immediate, flashy rewards.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we need to start by defining exactly who Val is, psychologically speaking, before making a single move.
Right, establishing that foundation.
Exactly. The document establishes right away that Val's identity is anchored by three concepts: ambition, structure, and mastery. Val does not log in to chase quick dopamine hits. Val plays to impose rigid order onto a chaotic, open-world system.
And they call this governing doctrine controlled ascent.
Controlled ascent.
Yeah. The document emphasizes a philosophy of system first, emotion second. I mean, think about how the average person interacts with a massive open world game, or even how they sit down at their desk to tackle a workday.
Right.
The very first question they usually ask themselves internally is, what do I feel like doing today?
Right, like, do I feel like clearing out my inbox? Do I feel like fighting a digital dragon? It's entirely mood dependent.
Exactly. But Val completely removes emotion from the daily equation. There's no random wandering. Every single session has mathematically defined, tangible outputs.
Like what?
The source gives examples like, today equals 50 quest points and unlocking the Fairy Rings network. Or, today equals reaching level 70 agility. It's never about following a whim. It is about the math of progression.
Okay, but let me jump in here, though, because reading the schedule in this document gave me pause. The framework mandates playing 2 to 4 hours daily.
Right.
That is roughly 18 to 30 hours a week. Now, hold on. For a lot of people, 30 hours a week is practically a part-time job.
It is a lot of time.
So how can the document possibly frame a 30-hour gaming habit as a strategy to avoid burnout? That sounds completely exhausting.
It sounds high compared to a casual hobby, sure.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the environment Val operates in. In the hardcore community of this specific game, players frequently pull 10, 12, or even 14-hour daily grinds.
Wow.
Yeah, they play until they literally cannot keep their eyes open. So by capping the playtime at a strict 4-hour maximum, Val is actually practicing containment.
Oh, I see.
The document explicitly states that burnout kills more accounts than inefficiency ever will. So they call it momentum over intensity. You don't sprint until your legs give out. You stack consistent, daily, measured progress.
Precisely. The real metric of success for Val isn't how many grueling hours she logged. It's answering one binary question before logging off. Did I move the account forward today?
Did I move the account forward today? I love that.
Yep. Some days, a 2-hour session yields massive, game-changing unlocks. Other days, 4 hours is just a slow, monotonous grind for a single level. but both matter equally to the system.
This is like the difference between someone going to the gym and doing whatever machines look fun versus someone walking in with a strict periodized spreadsheet.
That is a perfect analogy. And what's fascinating here is the psychological maturity of this approach in the timeline. The source notes the average player takes 3 to 6 months, or even longer, just to reach the mid-game phase.
Because they play inefficiently. Right. They rely on motivation, they get bored, they quit, they come back months later and restart, they just drift. But Val, using this strict weekly structure, reaches that exact same mid-game milestone in just 4 to 8 weeks.
4 to 8 weeks. That is a staggering difference in velocity. And it all comes down to the foundation built in phase 1, right? The first 30 days.
The early game. Yes.
And how Val categorizes the skills she needs to level up is completely different from a normal player. It's not about what the skills simply do. They're categorized by identity.
The document calls this her skill taxonomy. Val doesn't view skills merely as utility tools. Tier 1 skills are described as her very DNA.
Right.
Take the agility skill, for example. It represents discipline and a high tolerance for suffering. Slayer represents structured progression because the game assigns you specific monsters to hunt, forcing you to engage in structured combat rather than random fighting.
Makes sense.
Construction is about gaining absolute control over your environment, and Herblore is about preparation, gathering raw materials to brew potions for future leverage.
And on the flip side, the document dictates stripping all the romance away from basic resource skills. Things like fishing or wood cutting.
Yeah, no nostalgia there.
Right. Don't sit there chopping virtual trees for minimal gold just because it feels relaxing.
Yeah.
You execute them with ruthless efficiency, no emotion attached.
Exactly.
And I have to push back on one mechanical thing here, because it threw me when I first read the strategy.
Oh, what's that?
The guide insists on pushing that agility skill to level 50 or 60 almost immediately. Now, most people jumping into a fantasy game want to grab a sword, put on some cool armor, and start fighting.
Of course.
But training agility in this game literally involves running laps over suspended obstacle courses built onto city rooftops. Val is basically just practicing parkour for days on end. Why on earth prioritize running in circles?
It sounds like a massive waste of early enthusiasm until you understand the underlying mechanics of time in the game world. Movement speed is the ultimate bottleneck. Your agility level dictates your stamina, like how long your character can run before they are forced to walk. If you spend 20% of your time in the game just slowly walking from point A to point B, that is dead, wasted time.
Oh, wow.
By rushing agility early, Val dictates her movement speed, which means she controls time.
It's a foundational multiplier.
It acts as a multiplier for literally everything else you will ever do in the game. Every quest you complete, every combat encounter you travel to, every resource you gather is done faster because you invested in the capacity to move efficiently before doing anything else.
That was brilliant.
The document summarizes Val's core code beautifully. We do not waste movement. We unlock before we grind.
We unlock before we grind. I really love that phrasing. And she applies that same strict geographic logic to where she spends her time. She doesn't just wander the map hoping to bump into adventures.
No, she builds territory.
She establishes a geographic corridor, specifically between 3 early towns, Lumbridge, Verrock, and Ardoon. She stays there because of the high density of quests. She minimizes transit time.
And she has non-negotiable goals for this phase, too. Things like Barrows Gloves, 43 Prayer, Fairy Rings, and of course, pushing agility.
Right. And alongside that, she establishes what the document calls daily systems.
The habit loops. Even at very low levels, Val is relentlessly consistent with passive systems. Let's look at the mechanisms here. She focuses on farm runs, planting herbs that grow in real time, and doing birdhouse runs.
Birdhouse runs.
Yeah, this involves traveling to a prehistoric zone called Fossil Island, setting up wooden traps to catch birds, and then simply walking away.
Ah, so she is putting the game's internal clock to work for her. She sets a trap or plants a seed, logs off to go live her actual life,
Yes.
and the game keeps running the math in the background.
Yes.
She is essentially earning equity while she sleeps.
Which creates compounding progress that runs parallel to her active tasks. These aren't the glamorous high adrenaline parts of the game, but doing them consistently creates an avalanche of resources later on.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because all of this preparation leads up to a radical pivot, the transition into the mid-game.
A huge shift.
Right. Now, the source makes a crucial distinction here that changes how you view progress. Mid-game is not a measure of time. You don't just magically arrive at the mid-game because you've been playing for 2 months.
Not at all. Mid-game is defined entirely as a state of infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
It is the moment the account becomes completely self-sufficient. Your passive farming and trapping systems are running seamlessly. You have a solid baseline of combat stats, like 70 plus in combat skills. And crucially, you have your money engine online.
Making real gold.
Exactly. This means you have unlocked methods to consistently generate 500,000 to 1 million gold per hour, entirely independent of getting lucky with random item drops.
Once Val hits this exact point of self-sufficiency, the strategy fundamentally breaks away from how a normal person plays.
Completely.
A standard player hits this mid-game milestone, gets a little bit of wealth, and immediately goes shopping. They buy better weapons, flashier armor, and run off to fight bigger bosses.
Right. Instant gratification.
Val does the exact opposite. She takes every single ounce of her wealth, sacrifices her combat progression, sacrifices her early bank value, and pours it all into one massive, grueling goal, level 99 construction.
The document calls this the infrastructure first variant. It is the single most defining strategic decision of the Val build.
You are basically choosing to live in absolute poverty. You are running around in rags, eating the digital equivalent of ramen noodles, pouring every single piece of gold you earn into virtual real estate.
But she's not building a pretty house to show off.
No. The player-owned house, or POH, becomes a high-tech command center. She builds an ornate pool, which instantly restores all of her health and stats with one click.
Amazing.
She builds a jewelry box and a portal nexus, which act as omnidirectional teleportation hubs to anywhere in the world.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see a profound shift in how resources are utilized. Gold has shifted from being a safety net to being a precision tool. Val trades early liquid wealth for permanent, irreversible efficiency. While normal accounts are constantly asking, what gives me progress right now? Val asks a much deeper structural question. What removes friction forever?
Let's translate that out of the game for a second.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly like a freelance graphic designer who finally lands a big contract.
Okay. Yep.
A normal person might take that money and pay themselves a bonus or take a vacation.
Yeah.
But the Val approach would be taking out a loan against that contract to buy a massively overpowered, high-end rendering computer.
Ooh, yes.
It hurts your wallet today, but tomorrow your rendering time is cut in half. You have effectively doubled your hourly rate forever. You endure the pain of having nothing early on so that later your baseline operating speed is twice as fast as your competition.
And by building this maxed-out command center, she fundamentally alters the physics of the game. The document talks about time compression. Think about the normal player loop. You walk to a monster, you fight it until you run out of food or supplies, you walk all the way back to a bank, you slowly restock your inventory, and you walk back. It is incredibly linear and full of friction.
Very slow. But Val's loop, once that portal nexus and ornate pool are built, is entirely different. She fights, teleports instantly to her house, clicks the pool to fully restore her health, uses the nexus to teleport directly back to the monster, and continues fighting.
Teleport, restore, teleport, execute.
She stops walking entirely. She is literally saving minutes on every single combat rotation. Extrapolate those saved minutes over months of gameplay, and we are talking about hundreds of hours of preserved time.
And that infrastructure leads us directly into the endgame phase, where the entire focus of the account shifts from control to expression.
Expression, I like that.
Because once that frictionless efficiency is built, Val unleashes it on the absolute hardest, most punishing parts of the game. The climb accelerates exponentially.
Her wealth generation goes parabolic.
Oh, absolutely.
The document notes her bank value skyrockets from 10 million to 100 billion to over $1 billion gold, because every single piece of gold earned per hour is now being amplified by that multiplier she built in the mid-game.
And her actual gameplay style fundamentally shifts. The source maps out this evolution beautifully. The early game was all about survival and minimizing waste. The mid-game was strictly about optimization and building the infrastructure, but the late game is purely about performance.
Performance. Like, the muscle memory is completely locked in. She is utilizing mechanics like prayer flicking.
Right, which is
where you turn defensive digital shields on and off in fractions of a second to completely negate incoming damage. She is optimizing complex boss fights instinctively. She is executing perfectly under immense pressure.
She is a machine.
But reading all of this, I have to admit, it sounds incredibly intense, almost robotic. If every single minute is perfectly optimized and mathematically planned out, where is the actual joy? Where is the fun in the end game if you've just turned yourself into a perfectly oiled machine?
It is a vital question, and the source actually addresses it when outlining Val's favorite memories and items. The joy for Val doesn't come from the same dopamine hits as a casual player. Her favorite items aren't just expensive trophies to flex in front of other players, they are highly specific symbols of the journey.
Symbols like the Infernal Cape.
Exactly. To explain the mechanics of the Infernal Cape, it is arguably the single hardest combat challenge in the game. It requires hours of brutal, unbroken combat where a single missed prayer flick sends you all the way back to the beginning.
Brutal.
It requires precision execution and absolute mental control. For Val, equipping that cape is her identity. It is undeniable proof that, as the document says, you don't quit when it's hard.
Wow.
Then you have the ultra-rare weapons like the twisted bow or the scythe. She values them because they represent total economic success and mechanical dominance over the game's hardest environments.
But my absolute favorite detail in the entire document is her attachment to the Barrows Gloves. This is a relatively early game item, but it is listed among her most prized possessions because unlocking them requires completing over 175 different quests.
A massive undertaking.
For Val, those gloves are remembered as the very first real sign of progress. The first moment she looked at her character and felt the system actually working.
And when you look at her favorite memories, they are deeply tied to the effort itself. Her favorite memories include the struggle phase.
The struggle phase.
Yeah, that period early on when she had low stats, zero money, and everything felt agonizingly slow, but she maintained her discipline anyway.
Right.
And then the moment when everything clicks, when the fairy ring teleports unlocked, the fossil island passive systems ran themselves, and she finally felt total control over her environment.
It is the satisfaction of the architect stepping back and looking at the finished skyscraper. And the document notes that the evolved Val, the 2025 version of this character, finds her ultimate joy in teaching.
Taking all that accumulated mastery, that rigorous mindset, that efficiency, and sharing it with newer players, she stops climbing the mountain alone and starts climbing with others.
Which is the natural progression of true mastery. You secure your own oxygen mask, you build your impenetrable system, you reach the summit, and then you turn around and throw a rope down for the people still climbing.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive by talking about that massive, overwhelming jigsaw puzzle scattered on your floor. This document isn't just an analysis of how to beat a fantasy point-and-click game.
Not at all.
It is a profound blueprint for tackling any massive, intimidating project in your real life. It is about the absolute necessity of building infrastructure before you go chasing the shiny rewards. It's about recognizing that, as the source so perfectly states, discipline creates order, and progress creates peace.
This raises an important question, though, and it is addressed right at the very end of the source document under a section titled The Real Endgame.
After you max out all the skills, after you build the billion-gold bank account, after you equip the Infernal Cape, what then? Because the true achievement, the real endgame, isn't the digital cape. It's not the wealth.
It's not the pixelated rewards at all.
The source states the real endgame is this. You became someone who finishes what they start. The realization is that the game itself was just a forge. And Val's ultimate endpoint is the profound understanding that every summit reveals a higher one waiting.
You became someone who finished what they start. That line fundamentally changes the value of setting a massive goal.
It really does.
The goal itself is just the excuse to build the character required to achieve it. At the very end of the document, Val learns to log in, not to grind mindlessly, not to just watch numbers go up to soothe some underlying anxiety. She logs in only when there is a mountain truly worth climbing, a skill deeply worth refining, or someone worth climbing alongside.
A complete paradigm shift.
And that is the thought I want to leave you with today. But I don't want you to just think about mountains and puzzles. I want you to look at your actual real-world routines right now. Think about Val dumping every ounce of her early wealth into building that frictionless, player-owned house.
The infrastructure.
What is your real-world player-owned house? What is that one expensive, painful, heavily delayed investment you are actively avoiding? Maybe it's taking a month of your weekends to finally learn that complex piece of software. Maybe it's spending the capital to hire a virtual assistant to handle your inbox. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation to restructure your household duties. What is the friction-removing investment you keep putting off because you are too busy walking the long way around every single day?
It is time to stop walking, build the infrastructure, and become the relentless climber.
Until next time, stop wasting movement, build your systems, and keep climbing.